Order, get this underway. We have an agenda item to select a chair and vice chair for annual event. Something, you know, we might consider even thinking about establishing a rotating chair or some such thing. It's not a subject we've talked about, so currently we have procedures just to nominate for chair, vice chair, and to vote on those. Are there chairs open to nominations or discussion?
Are there any term limits of anybody that's would be an issue?
No, the next person that would be out is in the year 2022. I have nobody expiring during year 2021. And then in 2022, it's actually Jim. And that's not until the end of July.
Okay.
And Greg, you expire 22, but you're eligible to renew. And so it doesn't like,
Am I 23?
you are 23, and then you cannot renew, right? So I've got basically 4 people who cannot renew when their term is up and 3 people that can, so.
Right.
But nobody, the closest one coming is 22.
Well, I would nominate him as the chair.
Second actor, done a really nice job, so I have a
Any nominations? Then all those in favor? Aye. Okay, I seem to have it. We need a vice chair. Someone familiar with vice?
When is familiar with that?
I would nominate Julie for that. She's doing a fantastic job as the vice chair.
I would think of it. Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Yeah,
The ayes have it. Okay, now we have rather nice,
approval of lots of minutes.
yes, multiples.
I just want to thank everyone for their patience with that. That was just a little crazy time, but I couldn't
Well,
keep caught up on that, so thank you guys.
yeah, there are a few words.
Talking to us. It's to,
That would be
but he should,
problematic.
does he have to mute himself?
You can unmute and mute. You can do both,
Oh, he can unmute himself.
yes.
There's a really delightful degree of detail about particular subject matters discussed, which I find very helpful in having continuity in the thoughts about what was discussed, points that were raised that may come up again in future meetings. So I'd like to commend you of the details, please, in the discussion of our minutes. Few odd words here and there that, like they were typed over in a hurry, but I think the ideas are quite intelligible in here. I appreciate knowing what we have discussed, particularly when there are points of contention. People are going on record about them.
We have to go through each one.
I think we have to approve them one at a time.
Okay,
I don't know
You can, if somebody wants to make a motion for, kind of read through those, you can do it in one motion.
Yeah, so you would just have to list July 20th, August 3rd, yeah.
I guess it depends if anybody has any issues with that one.
And then if we do, we can just say July 20th as amended.
I would just take issue with one bit of wording that goes back to the minutes of August 3rd. There is a paragraph on page 3 of the 4 pages following synchronization to go over the amount guidelines that would need, with asking if that would be a consensus vote. And where I replied that no vote would be needed, I think what I intended was that to be a suggestion that no vote might be needed because it's a theoretical discussion. I didn't want this to sound as though I were making a declaration, but merely participating in a discussion about it. That sounded a little too much like an autark. And the last sentence where I added, limit the committee to the ask of the opportunity, I'd love that to read suggested.
So quinoa suggested, or?
I'd say suggested, but because we are still in discussion, and it sounds as though I were defining things that were already determined in policy. It's a little odd-pointed. Hate to think that the power of the committee chair was dictatorial.
No problem.
This doesn't have anything to do with the approval of these, but these are all recorded, right, Rusty? And good, is this a statute or something you have to keep for 7 years, or what's the?
There is, and I can't remember, you have to keep the recording for a certain amount of time, and you have to keep minutes a certain amount of time, and I think it's a long time.
I think it's the written record that really has to exist, but we have all of the audio anyway.
Yeah, I'm just curious, because someday that will probably become the de facto on these things, and we're in that transitional point, I think. Okay.
Yeah, I think since 2017 or 2018 is when we started putting all of our stuff online. So most of that stuff's online.
And it is interesting because we've gone back to minutes from like the 40s and the 30s to figure out how things happened and how we got to where we got today. So it is really fascinating how these minutes have been helpful.
And then 20 years from now, when they look at this, they'll be able to like hit play and
Exactly.
be there. So it'll be interesting.
Well, so just ask Greg Swedenborg.
I won't be.
That's why I like the detail in these, because we can see the points that were raised.
Yes.
Not necessarily agreed to at the time, but they may come up again in the future.
Can I clarify this whole argument about how far over can we go over the ask? I want to make sure that I
Understand? Yeah.
yeah, because I'm not sure where we landed. The idea is we can't give more than they asked unless somebody brings up that they want to do more for some reason. It can't be over more than 10% of the ask, and then that vote has to be unanimous. Is that the way, am I remembering that correctly? I thought that's where we came down.
We took it to council,
Yeah.
and council said that if you wanted to give them more, they would need to revise their ask, I think. Wasn't that?
Let us go back and check. I forgot, because that had so many iterations, but
Right.
it's what council, I think that's what you recommended to council, Julie, but
Okay.
I don't think, I remember that, on at least for part of it, they said, we don't want you to give more than they asked. But then I don't know if there was a workaround on top of that, if they're, if
I
you.
vaguely remember a unanimous vote, and I vaguely remember 10%, and 10% is in here. If somebody asked me on the street today, I'm not sure I could be
Right.
clear about what the new procedure is, so that we can't, so one person can't wipe out the numbers.
Right, but the operative decision is the one made by council. That's your recommendation,
Okay,
unless that's the joint meeting?
I have to check the minutes from that joint meeting, because I don't.
Yeah.
because that's not here, right?
No, that's a council meeting.
That's what I thought, okay. Okay. I would be interested in the clarification because I'm not sure that I have it right and I want to make sure that I'm.
It would be good for all of us because we all carry our memory of what we think. we
Right,
heard.
exactly.
Jen, could you send out the answer?
Yep, I was trying to see if I could find them real quick and I'm not, but I will find those minutes and send them out.
Are there any motions to entertain about acceptance of the minutes?
Motion that we accept the minutes as amended. For July 20th, 2020, August 3rd, 2020, October 5th, 2020. October 13th, 2020, October 14th, 2020, and October 21st, 2020.
I second.
Is everyone comfortable that had enough review time? We go ahead with the vote. Then, those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well done.
Yes, very well done. Thank you. Jen.
Very thorough.
She loves doing minutes.
They're my favorite thing.
Ms. Craig? Trying to figure-
Yep. I'm here.
Yep, we can hear you. You got quite a bit of feedback now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of hard to hear. Are we in session in the city hall?
Yes.
Because on my paper that I have, it says it's mandatory that we do virtual meetings until further notice.
No, that was updated to where the members of the committee could be here, but not the public.
Oh, all right. Well, yeah, it doesn't really say that on here, but can I come across to the city hall? I'm just next door.
Sure. Sure, come on.
All right,
over.
on my way. Thank you. On my way.
That's about a 2.5 minute transit time.
Yeah.
in the ambulance.
Keep going.
Yeah, I felt we were in a bit of isolation, not having his input. Okay, city manager is up next.
Thank you. Sometimes when I ask for something, I'm really looking for like two numbers. I get a sheet like this and I look all over it and I can't find the two numbers I was looking for. But what I wanted to provide you with today was how much above budget we are in terms of revenues for the first two quarters. And I believe that on where it says page 9, I believe that we're about $125,000 over in collections. But again, looking at it from an accountant perspective, they deduct quarter 3 and quarter 4 because we don't have the money yet. So it shows that we're negative. But essentially, we're about $125,000 over what we budgeted. So we are going into budget in relatively good shape this year.
That's an income revenues generated above the estimate.
Yes.
Cash on hand is a nice number.
Mhm.
Like my account, it's all transitory. I actually appreciate the overview this format
Yeah,
gives
This
is
is
really
fabulous.
nice. Takes a while to sort it out, but that also makes us think about the mechanics of the cash flow.
yeah. Yeah, I'm just saying that
Beautiful.
whenever I ask finance, I get way more.
Sure.
And my accounting skills do not come close to theirs, and so I result in more confusion.
Good
But-
question on this.
Yes.
Right now we have cash on hand of 314. And we are getting or have received the check back from Gitless Beach of $8,400. Is that correct, that they have
Yep, they,
refunded that?
they paid back the first quarter payment.
Okay, so that's the 314 plus 8,400. Is that, would that be correct? Or does that 314 include?
So this did not include anything that we got back from Get Lit. Because this went to council like a month or two ago, and so.
Yeah, because I saw the distributions returned at 0, so, okay, so really it's, in essence, it's 322.
Yeah, because if you add Get Lit, the 8,400 from Get Lit, then you have a little bit more.
Okay.
Right, a little bit more.
We will be able to update anticipated return funding once we get into individual
Right.
events.
Mhm.
Although many of these have not yet occurred and we have seen no financials as yet. We'll see room to adjust that return number coming up.
But just what we know now,
Right.
322. Okay,
Bruce, I have a question for you. I'm not sure it's related to this, but I've been thinking about it this morning.
Mhm.
Is that because we're using tourism dollars to purchase and to upgrade the school?
Mhm.
Is there a state mandate how much of the activity in that building has to be tourism related?
No. No, it's, no, no, it's vague. And it says that it has to be, tourism related facility. And all the functions that we're talking about will be tourism related. It doesn't mean that we can't have, it's like anything going on at the Seaside Center. I mean, in most cases, the public is able to attend. And,
And it's much more of a convention center than what ours.
well, you're right, theirs is
I guess
more,
My concern was when I looked through all the public feedback, which I didn't see very many business people commenting on, which made me nervous.
yep,
I
me
mean,
too.
a lot of it was community stuff, which is all, I mean, I'm part of the community, so I love that, but it's like, it can't turn into a community center.
Right,
If we don't use it for tourism, then it seems like I don't know what they could do to us, but it's like, we're using all this money that's supposed to be tourism related. And if it becomes pickleball courts and all we do is have public meetings in there, that doesn't seem like that's.
no, and I think what happened is that when we did the community events, we really didn't talk much about, the funding source and that sort of thing. But from the very beginning, council was aware that if we were going to use the TLT funds, that it had to be primarily for tourism-related events. So outside, I mean, maybe one or two people might have mentioned something to do with exhibits or something having to do with the tribe. But in any planning discussions we've had, the whole tribe and historical and all that sort of thing will play a prominent role in it. When one of the things that was accepted, well, at least it seemed to get the most positive response, was from Kelly Ennis, and she's our HRAP director. And that was
I took the
to,
tour with her.
pardon?
I took the tour with her.
Yeah,
You gave the tour of the building.
yes, okay, good.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that at least one of the rooms would be dedicated to the wildlife and that historical kind of a thing for what do you call it, tours that are kind of self-directed. And we would probably do something, like that with historical also. And we want to save at least 2 rooms that would be just general meeting use. So that if somebody from a hotel wanted, was able to pull together some people and they wanted to go to a location. I mean, it's a pretty darn good location to be coming to a meeting right there in that physical site with the historical background, all those kind of things. So we see that as being a draw also. So we know that the type of things that ultimately will go in will have to be tied to that. But when the public came in, there really had not been a lot of that background provided. And so everything was looked at with the lens of how would that be converted over from a tourism use or to a tourism use. And there will probably be significantly more discussion on that at the meeting it's a workshop on April 13th. Unless they push that or something else to another date. We have a workshop coming up on the 13th that is extremely full. So I'm going to do an email to the council saying that on the meeting that we're going to have on the 6th, let's talk about if we don't need to set 2 additional meetings to give everything the time that it requires, that it's due.
I think that would be a good time for, personal input, not committee input. I know I've got to throw some input at, because I'd like to see electric charging stations for vehicles in a cluster there as a draw myself, but I'll get to write that out.
Yeah, and those are a good idea, but I would, and we can talk about that. But I think we would probably do that in a way that they're right in some of the most public. That's kind of a hidden space, but we could probably do that in some of our parking lots, that kind of thing.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, and Julie, so and the rest of the committee know, when we go through the planning on this, the thing about the funding is always in the forefront of our minds. And if we can't make that work, then we'll have to rethink the funding on it. But for right now, that's how we see it moving forward.
Okay, next up are our review of the midterms as they stand now. I'd like to look through them one at a time. Many of these will not have occurred, and there will be no particular expenses and or data available. But it will vary from organization to organization. So, well, I got up first. Our chamber events. Let's see what that's my overview sheet. I think, yeah, now let's take them in order. Yeah, finally found it. We've all got our, start with,
Arts Association.
yeah, somehow I shuffled all of mine. Sorry for this.
Rusty, for the record, can we put these documents up on the screen?
It's in the packet under the TAC meeting if you want to do that.
Yeah, even though we don't have anybody interested on the line now, we're going to be putting the particular applications and reports up so that somebody looks at the Zoom meeting later, they'll know what it is that we're looking at.
Perfect. Okay, Lila is the evaluator for their midterm. Their first program, so I assume everyone has this. The arts exhibits, virtual exhibitions, receptions, and workshops. They've included the rough budget for that. Several pages of data.
I think there's about 20 pages of minutes.
I see that.
That's a lot of meetings.
If I can just give a little bit of a report in between while we're trying to pull that information up. This committee was instrumental in getting power and bringing more attention to the band shell. And I had a meeting with Patrick Lathrop, Paul Duber, and Andrew Conray, I think is.
Yep.
And Patrick is committing to a Shakespeare and a murder mystery for every weekend through the summer. Paul is committing to every other Thursday for the Buskers Happy Hour, and is planning on working with all of the restaurants to say that when we advertise, we'll say these restaurants are having to-go boxes. This is their menu if you want to pick something up and, you know.
Similar to last summer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, only we're gonna, and also we are gonna be, last summer, we just wanted to be able to bring people together that hadn't seen their friends in like 6 months or something like that. And just so that they could just wave hi to each other, but not necessarily from the hotels and things. This year, we are talking about expanding it for the tourism uses. And so hopefully the numbers will go up and that will give them some additional. Andrew didn't, he has funding from the community grant for like 3 or 4 concerts. And so what you folks started talking about and say, hey, you know, why don't we use that location, especially in this environment, is turning into a very active and in my opinion, just a very cool thing to be able to go to the park, sit down, enjoy the time. So y'all got that going. So it's really picking up.
Hats off to Greg Bell, he's not here.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
excellent idea.
Well, I attended a number of those events
Yeah.
on Thursday and Sundays, and they were fantastic.
Yeah, it's really cool.
I second that.
Yeah. And from that, we can look at making other things happen there as far as, you know, assistance to make it easier to put things on. It's a silly thing, but we talked that the city would rent, we call it one of those moving things. You know, from U-Haul or whatever one of these companies are, but put it out there on Friday night so that whoever's gonna, if somebody's gonna do a whole weekend, they can just store their stuff there, bring it out on Saturday, because otherwise you've got to take it all home with them. And then we would, you know, just take it back. So we're just thinking of ways, okay, now how do we reach, or how do we change how that space works? So I think there might be some cool things coming, but I know this summer is gonna be pretty neat.
That sounds great.
But we may want to have a secure locked position so no entrepreneur can pull his own truck up to haul off the U-Haul.
Yeah, it's not a U-Haul. I forgot what it is. It's one of those.
Like a cargo thing,
Pardon?
like the containers, the cargo
A
containers.
pod, yeah, a pod. That's what we're talking about. And we could park things around it that would make it difficult for anybody else to try to move it, but it's just, think, all right, because that's a problem that they had last time. It's like, we can solve it. So. Anyway,
Nice.
no, thank you folks for making the suggestion, getting it started.
Are we ready to talk about this one?
I think we are. Comments on their plans and today.
I'll just make a comment that, and I think, as I interpret what we do here as a committee, the way we spend money, that this is kind of an ideal situation. It's funding something that you can't figure out exactly how many heads are there. You can't figure out the actual traffic, but it is, I call it an attraction, you know, it's something that defines what Cannon Beach is as an artistic community and brings, you know, give something to people coming here to do. And whether they buy stuff at the gallery and help it be self-funding, that's up on them as on the retail aspect of it. But as a community assistance, I think this is providing assistance and funding via what our charter is. But it's an nail on the head to me.
Agreed, and I like that they created a virtual component of this, and a virtual component, you know, it's just gonna attract people who, when they come to Cannon Beach, to actually go to the gallery and so on. So I like that they added that, and that's something that they more likely will continue to do. We were talking about how you know, businesses are adding virtual components to things, or online stores or Etsy shops. And those aren't going to change. And so what we're seeing them is just creating another channel for attracting, not heads and beds, but eyeballs that will eventually lead to that.
Puts Cannon Beach in front of people anyway.
Absolutely.
And I think they've done a great job with their virtual part. I know that they were kind of scared to put their toe in the water, but I think Scott's done an amazing job. And he's good at selling art. Man, that guy can sell art. Whew.
I think anything in feedback we can give them helps them to change what they have traditionally done. It's one of the oldest institutions around that still needs to adapt to the times. I like what they've done. And although I reference a book I've been reading recently called The Tyranny of Metrics, putting the limitations, we need metrics to measure things. But I don't want to get too carried away focusing so much on metrics, because we won't be able to measure everything. We just want to keep a perspective on what those metrics are able to tell us and not be entirely reliant, because I think several of these organizations are going to have a hard time coming up with hard numbers. There's going to be some estimates of effect. And we want to keep them focused on actual impact that should be registered in metrics, but it's modifying my view of just how hard I want to be demanding of all those metrics.
It goes back to what Greg started with, and this goes to the fabric of the community, right? This association. Fact that they are able to continue to have events and have people in the gallery, considering what's taking place in the last year, and people look at them online and their virtual events. To me, it's just, I'm glad they pivoted, and if they were having concerns about doing it, you know, we all have concerns about doing things online, but it's all kind of working out. I'm glad they're doing it. I'm glad they continue it. I think it's important to support this organization.
I'd just like to follow up on Jim's comment. And it was a conversation that I had probably a year and a half ago with Julie. And that's talking about the difference between promoting the product and improving the product. And some of these events just make the experience here better. And so maybe you can't count, you know, that how many people came just for that particular event. But as you said, it is the fabric of the community. And so what we're doing is we're improving the product by doing some of these smaller things. So, and I'm thrilled to see that.
I think for us, that's a common sense kind of metric.
Yeah.
A local focus outside of strict accounting.
Yeah.
That we always, I think, are going to have to carry our own lens from the community perspective.
Yes. Yeah, and I totally, a lot of what we try to do in government is, you know, as far as doing metrics and all that kind of stuff, to me, it just created like this bogus atmosphere because there's some things you can't measure. And I'm glad that you brought up the thing about that there are things you can measure and there are some things you can't. but it doesn't mean you don't consider it. So,
Well, yeah, no, you've got to consider
yeah, yeah. And I think that we tend to get away from that, and that's crazy.
it. Okay. There's another event that they are the sponsor of, which is a new event yet to occur. And I think one of the things that we did with this last round of funding was to assure some of these events that aren't occurring in our current fiscal year, the ability to plan and go forward with confidence that there's support for them. And we're going to find ourselves with some reports here that reference those events not yet happening. And that Union Knot is one such event.
Very excited about this event. I mean, I'm not a participant in this event, but I'm so glad that Union Knot Slash and Wow Weekend will have some energy put back into it, and then it might become a real thing. And especially at that time of year when it's desperately needed. And I don't think it's weather dependent. I mean, you have to walk between shops and whatnot, but I didn't see that slowing anybody down the last time, not last year, but even the year before, with all those dang pink bags walking around. It's like, bring it, ladies.
It's a great customer demographic and I'm walking around.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So we won't,
And this hasn't happened.
yeah,
No, not even close. Well, I get my hair cut there, so I talked to Katie often about, hey, what's going on? And she's like, oh, we got this going and this going. She's got all this stuff lined up. It's like, wow.
in this instance, I expect them to hold the money until their expenses show up, and we're not gonna get a real midterm evaluation until next cycle.
It'll be their final, is what it'll be.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yep.
We have chamber events coming up in this sequence. The event tourism videos. Given us the list of things they intend to do video footage of for promotion. It's an ongoing program.
So have they done any filming as far as you know, Greg, right now? I mean, all of these events are yet to happen except for the hiking thing, and I'm assuming he wants to wait till summer to get some of that video.
Yeah, to my knowledge, that hasn't happened.
Yeah, okay.
So we won't actually have financial data from them until,
They're final.
right,
That's okay.
they're giving us, once again, the account snapshot that they received 82, 87 so far. But they're actually due to end up with 11,714. So once again, their number in here is just a snapshot at this date. There's more committed to them. I don't see anything particularly to dig into there until we see further evidence. Fat Bike Festival coming up April 30th, May 1 and 2.
Have any registrations happened yet?
I believe it's open. I don't know if anyone has registered. I've definitely seen some chatter on, social media and so forth of not just chamber, but like other, the Fat Bike Association.
Right.
And so forth, but. Yeah, I know yet.
I think they tried to adapt to conditions. I think they had to adapt to right that was canceled, but I thought they planned good logistics for the COVID environment, timed departures on the Clutchie Creek Trail, although that ran into a snafu, not of their doing.
So we don't, I don't remember at the board meeting, Jim talking about whether, maybe it wasn't open at the board meeting. I don't think registrations were open yet, was it? Because I don't remember him saying anything about, we have 5 people registered. or-
Yeah, no, I think they were about to open
They
it,
were
if
about to open
I remember correctly. I would have to go check.
Yeah.
But I remember we discussed that it was going to take place.
Yeah. Well, if you can come close to 75 writers, that would be amazing.
Oh, I like the job they did the first year they did this. So you just have to wait for more information, which apparently is gonna be in a final report.
And a report.
So there's so much of this happening with adaptations this year. The culinary event, this is one that's moved,
Really way out there.
right? We're a year away. But it's one of those that they have the confidence that we have given them support to date so that they feel confident to plan. We may have stretched the assumption that the city council has that everything will be completed in a fiscal year with this round of funding. But this will form a good discussion point for them and us setting policy in the future. I like the fact that there's confidence in planning for these events. So we're a year out on this one. Be interesting to see how this plays out because it carries its own profit potentials. Some point we'll have to ask them if they think it's going to be a fully sustainable thing or if there will be.
That's what they were planning on.
Yeah. I'm sure their plans are still in a state of flux during this COVID. Now the Wow Cannon Beach is the next event up.
Does anybody know who Oregon Coast Creative is? Never even heard the name.
Brand new. And they do mention in the what would be done differently in the future. More budgeting toward marketing. I wonder what specific marketing they're talking about, whether it's print advertising online, how they're doing that. Some unanswered questions about this one. And they may know who that creative group is.
Well, they didn't put in a person's name.
Just the name of
It's
the
the
company.
same was true with Union Knot, so we don't have a contact person there. I think I might have to go back to the original application, pull the name off of that. To try to get questions answered.
Someplace in Manzanita.
Yeah. Independent marketing agency located in
60 Lynetta Avenue. They don't say who they are.
Um,
They have actual clients, it looks like. Or they did, I can't tell. This is from 18, Porter Garibaldi. And Depot Bay. Huh. Who it is?
They have apparel on their website too.
The what?
They have apparel on their website.
I noticed that.
Yeah. It's interesting because it doesn't have a lot of information on that website.
Uh-uh. Do some digging. They have the URL, OregonCoast.com. That's impressive.
That's a good one.
Very impressive.
Is it
Somebody bought that a long time ago.
about OregonCoast.com or Oregon Coast?
OregonCoast.com.
on it right now, yeah.
Dang.
I work with
Nice graphics.
Bandon, Pacific City, Tillamook Coast, Rockaway. Visit Garibaldi.
That's good to know.
Huh. That's a nice graphic.
There's one organization that's gonna be looking for a new marketing company.
Yeah.
All right, let's
Yeah,
keep
sorry.
this going.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry,
I
sorry.
have a hard stop at 11.
Sure. Okay, Julie, can I turn this over to you? Next up is the Gallery Group,
Oh, sure.
and the evaluator's name looks familiar to me.
Good work. You don't have anything that's been going on in Trail Spring and Valley, correct?
Things have actually begun. Currently, Coast Media is involved. We've also engaged services of Southwest Art Magazine. Currently, Gary and his team are working on projects. We have yet to get reports back from them. The marketing expenses are not yet in, but we expect for the digital marketing to utilize the full services year-round of that social media work. The grant we received was for partial funding, and it's funding of about $17,680. The Gallery Group has decided to go ahead and fund the full proposed program. So we're making an additional expense added on top of that to see what the effect of the full year program is with the social media company.
And your, the social media is being done over on Facebook called Cannon Beach Gallery Group? What's the
Yes.
name of the, okay. There you are. So there was a post before stormy weather. But there hasn't been a post since then.
Okay, that's on our Facebook, that's, I'm not sure where the posts are,
Do you have an Instagram account, do you know?
I'm not the person to answer that.
Okay,
We will have evaluation from Gary. We haven't had meetings of the gallery group yet that show those results.
yeah, it says there's supposed to be weekly Facebook posts. Meaning rotating posts featuring member galleries and artists, content posts promoting Cannon Beach as an arts destination, and posting related to gallery group events. I would ask when that's gonna start. I'm not seeing it on my phone, that doesn't mean that it's not happening on my desktop.
All right,
Sometimes what you see on your phone is different than what you see on your desktop, but it looks to me like the last post was in October.
I admit that I have not followed. I will follow up on that.
I have a question.
Yes,
Is this strictly for art? I mean, because there's a lot more this town has than just art.
This is
And I don't know if
gallery
we're
group.
actually applying to the number of people that we really want to get out to.
This is specific to the gallery group.
Oh, gotcha.
This is the organization that keeps setting up. That's why I can do it. But yeah, this particular thing is just for these people who asked for this money.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will get that information back to the committee.
And I would be interested in knowing, it also says that there is 6 press releases, bi-monthly press releases. And I'm assuming that something would be going out for stormy weather. I mean, excuse me, not stormy weather, spring unveiling.
Yes, there's also an ad with Southwest Art Magazine
For this.
for their digital work. My understanding is that the advertising committee and Gary did not talk until the 3rd week in February. So to get the particular message out, that I think Gary was on hold waiting some instructions from our marketing committee, which is essentially Joe and Alan.
So you may not get 6 this year, in other words.
We may not.
Yeah.
We may not. Or it may be made up with additional promotion.
Okay.
We know there will be big promotions for an Earth and Ocean we're planning this year. But
That's still October,
that's going to be September.
September, okay.
We haven't seen applications for that as yet because it's in the next fiscal year for the city. This program, the digital media, pending the results, we expect them to be consistent with what coastal media has been able to do in the past, maybe taking over a good deal of our advertising promotion, going online and social media. We'll see that there are expenses that we're probably not incurring for spring unveiling that will end up returning funds to this committee, because there may have been some, there is some overlap in the potential funding of promotions. And we want to focus mainly on the digital. And I'll have to get back to you with the schedule of what has been promoted. I know that would be due definitely in our final,
Right.
because so much is happening right now. The reports I've had to date would not be up to date.
So I'm seeing your spring and beyond, it says you might be returning some of the funds.
Well,
So
that,
this is digital marketing package for overall gallery group
For
events,
the
and then you've done the specifics, I see.
right,
Okay, gotcha. And that's a midterm, even though it's probably a final. Okay, so are we done with the digital part? Okay. Then we have spring and valley.
right.
Okay. Yeah, hard to promote something that you don't want to be too successful. You don't want a bunch of people in town, but except for we do want a bunch of people in town.
Part of the
I need
idea
a bunch
is,
of people in town.
Yeah, I know,
is to
but
maintain continuity of the event. Because we're building the habit of people returning.
right.
That's key, that's key. Yes, I believe that wholeheartedly. You know, it's just like we have an event down in, when I lived in Arizona, we had Bike Week, and you'd be amazed, it just, the clientele just increased every year. You know, because it was a destination, you can plan for it, you know, it's coming, you get it in their schedule, you know, something you can plan for.
That's the plan. It's hard to do in COVID. That's the.
Well, that's another thing, I'd like to talk about suing the governor, so. Unless, of course, she wants to take care of all our bills.
Any conversation around spring and valley?
No, not think so.
Our final reports are gonna reveal much more. Stormy weather, however, does show us we actually will have expenses to return. We had assumed in our application 4660 in funding for a PR position. A previous PR position had been funded. That would have been the level of focus for Stormy Weather Arts Festival. But that has already previously been funded, though we included it as a cost to Stormy Weather Arts Festival. We did not actually incur that as a new money cost. So those funds, since we did not hire someone for that position for last year's Stormy Weather Arts Festival, but the gallery group members picked up those duties on their own as an internal cost, we'll be returning funding to the city. And that will all come down in the final report. We've alluded to it here in the final paragraph. But we're actually, our internal accounting would have caught that as a double payment from the city, thereby fraud, which would have incurred the cost of incarceration for me.
Anybody have any questions on this one?
What's the amount of, the expected amount that's being funded? For the term?
Well, last time I ran the number, instead of 4660, it looks like 4900 from Stormy Weather.
Yep.
And there's another potential for unutilized funds from Spring Unveiling.
It's roughly that 10,139 last.
Nothing more from weather? You can,
Okay,
tour.
okay, the cottage tour. Talk about a group that adapts and gives us great analytical information. I like the fact that they have that virtual tour potential to extend the time frame away from one weekend to still deal with lower concentrations of people that we're going to be saddled with for a while yet.
And she's still planning on doing this in September, but I can tell. Yeah, I mean, It'll be an interesting pivot. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
I have faith in her.
Me too.
Her analytics actually give us very solid information. Good metrics.
Marketing analysis is amazing.
These Sunset magazines are number 2 driver of
It
attendees.
still just blows me. But, okay.
It's been consistent
Yes.
for years.
It has been.
Well, no, it relates to the graphs that you had suggested years back to track
Right.
about heads and beds.
Yeah, I mean,
Because she's got a long-term perspective on this thing. And history. That helps us, I think, in establishing our relationship to the event.
why is she showing us 2017 numbers? Is that just a typo?
I don't know, some of her information was on this huge spreadsheet document, so I just printed everything out she gave me.
Oh, so maybe she didn't mean to send this. All of a sudden I'm looking, it's like, wait, that says 2017.
It could be comparison.
Yeah, it could be, but why 2017?
So she could have had a typo on that one.
She might have.
Well, let's go back and compare it to what we saw in 2017 and see if it's the same.
Well, she has 19 as well, so.
Yeah, she, yes,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, 19 is here.
So there, I think it is comparison.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sense.
I'd say they're doing a good job. Better than the.
Interesting how she accumulates this data, especially word of mouth advertising at 5%. You know what I mean? It seems to be, I don't know, it's just difficult to get these kind of numbers accurate.
You know, in our shop, we track on return and new clientele because we're engaged in conversation with each and every one. I don't know exactly how they
Well, they
get
checked
that.
in.
They have asked that question
Yeah, they
at times.
they do
Me
the
when
check
I've
in.
been in.
Yeah,
They got a ticketed event, so it's,
Yeah,
you take it until you answer the questions.
yeah, they have a questionnaire, is that, I guess that's, we should practice that questionnaire.
I think it's.
when you
worth it.
buy the ticket, you check the drop down box that says, how did you know about this event? And it's.
That's great, that's great.
So, yes,
Is there any way to correlate, like, you know, heads and beds with the events? I mean, as far as overall, you know, I guess reservations? Has anybody actually done that?
It's, well, she does it.
She does.
Saver does
Saver
it
does it all,
because,
yeah.
again, because they have to purchase your tickets. And then before he was doing that, we were asking it, checking where they were staying and how long they were staying.
Oh, beautiful.
No,
It's
it's
a
a-
ticketed event, then it's easy to do that too.
Yeah, I've been reading, looking at
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, but this one here actually says what hotel they spent and what percent of them were there.
and that's based on ticket sales.
Yes,
That is.
yeah.
The gallery group for the art events had attempted to gather that information from lodging after the fact.
Mhm.
And we never developed any confidence that we're getting accuracy in the numbers. Because quite often there was no one to answer the question, or shuffled from one person to another. And we felt we were getting nothing more than impressions from front desk.
Yeah.
I often question whether and the nightly room rate changes that are available would track pretty accurately what the demand was
Mhm.
in a given event, because those numbers from lodging organizations exist.
It does for Sabre.
Yeah.
You said your rates went up.
Oh,
Saber
I'm the guy who sets them, yeah, I mean, that's just how it works, you know, it's like seats on an airplane. And, you know, historically, it was school getting out at Sandcastle, and you could see that's when summer started, and so forth. But Saber would do that in the middle of March, or the first weekend of March, or whatever it was. And a few of these events do trigger that there's more demand to be here than not. Now then, I'll get off on a tangent with day tripping and throws that all out, and for this purpose, like she does in the cottage tours, it's, you know, it's difficult to get that information if you're not a ticketed event. And to Jim's point, if you rely on the hotels to do it, or the property management companies, it's not part of the way, you know, you want to rent a room, well, why are you coming here?
Yeah,
You know, it's not part of the shtick, and you can train your employees to do it, but it doesn't happen naturally. And you're so busy, you just want a transaction to happen and get out, you know, all that kind of thing. So I think ticket events is the only way you're really gonna get it. And then you have to shift over to what Jim mentioned. That's other important.
Absolutely.
There was such a drag on the use of time trying to gather information in which there was no confidence that it becomes a drag on the system. It's not very efficient.
Is there any way to make more of these events where having more ticketed, but perhaps getting them a little bit better discount on room stay, you know, to get that initial purchase, and then, you know, be able to get them to initiate, you know, this kind of data? This is empirical. We need this data.
This, the gallery group's been trying for years to figure out how to turn something into a ticketed event, to be able to get that information. Sometimes it's just impossible to do. The gallery group, the art gallery across the street from, next to you guys, is, you know, there's just no way to do it. You just have to decide that what you're doing is supporting the arts, which is our part of our mission here. And
Well, what perhaps, you know, we could use, maybe not a ticketed event for the entire event, but perhaps special events within the event that require ticketing at the resource building or at the school.
That's what I was gonna throw in there is that I think is event space driven.
Yeah.
If you have a venue driven, is what I should say.
Yeah.
If you have a venue, then you can have the cocktail party that everyone comes to and buys the tickets to, and then you get your, and I think, you know, the coasters kind of tried that in different ways, but I think the school will be a venue that allows for that.
Yeah, and you know, even when you have like the WOW for the women's only weekend kind of thing. I mean, I get it, but I don't see the numbers. I don't see, you know, maybe I'm wrong, but I think it should be a family event. I think if there's a WOW, you know, woman only, perhaps maybe at the time, you know, you have the school there as an event center for mom, the dad and the kids or whatever, I don't know. But I mean, ideally, this is a community, this is a family type thing, I think, I don't know, for the most
well,
part.
that got to set up as a different thing. They've tried to make it more inclusive in the recent years because several people commented about the name, but and they worked hard to have a ticketed thing, and they do now, I believe, have a ticketed opening night thing. They have several ticketed events, as far as I know.
Yeah.
Yep. They'll be able to get part numbers.
That's great, because you can't plan for the following year. You can't plan for the next year if you don't know any numbers for this year, you know what I mean? Yeah, that's really imperative.
And I think that literally it was, how many people do you see walking around with bags
Yeah.
on that particular weekend? You could tell if there was but that's, you know, weather dependent, I mean, there's so many factors.
Well, that's not a bad idea either, you know, for Cape Care trash, stuff like that, and the free bagging counts on that, you know, I don't know, something. But, yeah, I like the ticketed events. It's easier to plan, it's easier to get your statistics.
So we're talking about events lifting weekends, and we mentioned Saber, you mentioned Saber specifically. Saber, even though it didn't happen this year, lifted this past week, the weekend that it traditionally happens on, because those wine drinkers came into my store, and it was not expected, and we were shocked at the number of people that just said, let me reservation roll to next year, let me reservation roll to next year for my hotel room, and this is the week, that's the weekend that they come down. And it caught us by surprise. They're like, hey, we know it didn't happen, but we're here anyway. And
Wow.
it was a surprise to us.
And that's why these slimmed down virtual, only for a year or two, or I think we're the investment, because it at least kind of keeps the pilot light on.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Oh, man.
Well,
Those Patrick, those wine drinkers, man.
well, we've got people in the habit of travel. We've got a lot of pent up cabin fever now. I expect to see people carrying out their desire to re-travel again. Try to reestablish old habits if they haven't been able to. Well, we look for
I call it the silver tsunami.
Okay.
Bring it on.
Okay,
It's coming.
Tell it.
okay.
Oh my God, this summer's gonna be bad. I don't even know how I'm gonna be able to deal with it. Wow.
Okay, Coaster Theater is up.
Oh, you're not doing
I want to
Saber?
say,
Oh, Saber, wait a minute.
we're gonna shovel that here.
Oh, yeah.
No, I think it's Saber is next.
No, it is Saber. I was sticking with the good Saber report from Steve
Right,
Weintraub.
the virtual Saber that nobody was expecting.
Okay, well, this one is going to October of 2021.
It's gonna be interesting to see how this month-long event does versus a weekend event or a 4-day event. As people were coming in during the scheduled weekend, I was explaining to them what the fall event will look like. And there was a lot of kind of mixed feedback on it. So it's gonna be interesting to see what this is gonna look like.
What was the concern?
Well, lack of wine walk, first of all,
Sure.
because that's the big event, the lack of wine walk. Art wine walk, the Friday night,
Yeah, the Friday.
and more just focus on meal, restaurants, dinners, and presentations there versus.
Did they at least understand that there's no way to do a wine walk?
They did understand that, but that was the disappointment and, the classes, I mean, just everything is changing. Everything is changing, and so it's gonna be interesting to see if people follow along with the change or if the event loses them at the change. And I'm hoping that they follow along the change, because these are some of my best customers, but I'm a little bit concerned about it. So we'll see.
Interesting, yep.
I mean, in theory, we're gonna have a month of busy hotel rooms.
And serious wine people in town.
Yeah, right, and
Let's hope so.
this demographic purchases art and I'm guessing fabric and nice things. So hopefully that this event, with its month long, brings us a 31-day pop instead of a 4-day pop, but we'll see.
But I've always looked at this, his pivot on this was as a Band-Aid to get us to 2022.
Yeah.
And at least it's something, it's not nothing for an entire year,
Right.
and that hopefully it'll bring those people along. I mean, I haven't looked, so I don't know if anything he's doing with promotion on his pages. But I hope he's doing something, to continue to keep people talking about wine and Cannon Beach in the same sentence. Then there'll be this October thing, if people will come to or not, but then, hopefully, March of 2022, we can actually have a real stable wine walk.
Mhm.
Because of course, that's what people want to do.
Sure.
And, I think it's important not to lose sight that this isn't just Gary and the event, promoting it. Every store, shop, retailer, hotelier needs to grab onto what he's creating and promote it within their ranks.
Of course.
And so I think that will really make or break this up, not make or break it, but be important to this October event.
Mhm.
To say, hey, all you that came in March, but didn't happen this year, come in October. And, it's, everyone has to do that. And he's creating what we can use.
Is he doing a rat card or any kind of paper promotion to have it, You know, if he's
I
doing
haven't
it?
seen one.
I have not seen it yet. I usually just steal his social media stuff and,
Sure.
forward and promote. So.
Yeah,
He tends to put out a teaser early with almost no detail
right.
and follow that up as more details are hardened. We expect galleries, several galleries to participate in small events. But since this proposal, we know he's also got hired Tracy. I don't know how he's going to utilize her, but she could potentially do some of the wine type tasting events on her own without him.
Right.
He might have multiples running.
Right.
We have yet to see how they develop their logistics.
I hope he does something before summer so that people can do that
And
kind
plan
of
on
thing.
it. I know that
So,
the galleries that are going to participate are also going to be promoting it.
We'll be hosting a number of the tasting events.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
is that what that one? Okay. I know we are. Oh, let's see.
okay.
So it's sad to look across the patio every day and see that place closed. And I don't know how many customers come in and just point and go, when? I don't know. So,
In Sterling Weather Arts Festival discussion with the chamber, there's a suggestion that they expect to be open in November for a potential concert. We're all, of course, gambling on the behavior of our fellow man, not relaxing too soon, but there's so much good news. I'm quite hopeful that that sort of thing can happen.
And I remember too,
They're doing something in June?
yeah, they'll be doing some all summer. I mean, every weekend. They'll do Shakespeare one weekend, mystery play, then do the Shakespeare again.
It's not necessarily in the theater.
Gotcha, okay, so,
Yeah.
so what they're talking about here, they're saying special event in June and September, but really what's happening is it's gonna be it's not gonna be a Pink Martini concert kind of a thing.
No, it's going to be, heck, this is Cannon Beach, you never know. But it is a new event.
Okay,
I don't think it was contemplated when he wrote this.
right,
This was several of us sitting around talking about it and him finally getting back with me and saying, I want to do it every other weekend, or I'm sorry, every weekend.
okay, so,
Kind of like they did Shakespeare in the park.
right.
Yeah, yeah.
I can't
So
remember that one.
that'll be their pivot away from two special events, they're gonna do something else.
Yes, and we'll figure out, and we're trying to figure out a way to do, turn them into fundraisers. We can't do ticket sales, but when I was talking to Paul, he said he was surprised with even those little events that we did, and like with two groups playing music. He said each one of them walked away with at least $200 or $400. And that was a hat. It literally was a hat on the stage. So, depending on how they deal with it and what kind of a situation we can set up as far as like a place to make donations. Or if we say donations appreciated or something in the advertising and we make that visible, that might help everybody.
did we have any feedback from the restaurants if they had a little pop from their brown bag?
It was a little one. Sometimes it would be like 4 to 5 or something.
Mhm.
But again, we were primarily focusing on locals.
Right,
So hopefully it'll be more. We said you can deliver, but you can't take money in the park. So if somebody pays for their dinner in advance and you show up with it, that's something that can happen. But my guess is most people will come by and pick it up. But
they couldn't take money in the park, is that a city?
yes, yeah, you can't do
Outdoor merchandising.
outdoor merchandising.
Can you Venmo in the park?
Pardon?
Can you Venmo in the park?
Taking money.
Try an electronic?
No, that's translating.
While you're on that typical thing there, I mean, you might want to also consider, we're all business owners here, I think, most of us, right?
Mhm.
But basically crypto. You guys really need to grab a hold of crypto and say this is like a crypto friendly community because there's a lot of people with a lot of money, a lot of crypto. And I don't know if you guys are aware of that, or you can play that market or anything, but it's big. I'm actually putting Bitcoin POSs in my stores.
Hmm.
And they can actually, then you can do your transactions right there and it takes a fraction of a second.
I would just like the city to take a dollar bill in the store instead of crypto right now, but
Well, I kind of like,
what's the
actually,
restriction on the city
yeah,
taking money if food is delivered in the park? What is the restriction on that?
It's outdoor merchandising and we're not allowing the parks to be used to sell things.
And so that's a city, that's.
It's a city. It's a city.
That's an ordinance.
But it's not a cart set up in the park. There, you call and said, bring me my food.
Right?
The food is there, they're bringing it over to you, and you either give them $1 or you transfer money. That's
Right.
really illegal?
Yes.
Wow.
That seems archaic.
I mean, it's not a food cart. I mean, I get the idea, you don't want a bunch of food carts or people with tables and merch and that kind of crap on it, but
Well, that's not, to me, it sounds like you need to update ordinances to.
Yes.
Because if I own a food truck, I could say, hey, this guy,
yeah,
and technology has changed and the way we do things has changed, so it's an update. And they talked about it even this year, I think council had something about outdoor merchandising with the food cart thing.
Yeah, and that, the special events ordinance hasn't gone through yet. But we're going from a standpoint as far as a change that you cannot, if you have a wedding in one of our parks, you can't reserve the park.
So putting the hat on the stage is then also probably not, right?
No, the stage is the only place that you can reserve, but if somebody's playing soccer out in front of it, you can't do anything about that. It's just, we're not gonna put any restrictions. People can do whatever they want. To me, I mean, I don't follow that philosophy. But that's where we're starting from. And so the idea that people would be able to come in and sell things, and in our outdoor merchandising ordinance is very strong. The only exemption, I think, is the market, the farmer's market. But, and that's just something that traditionally folks have not wanted. And I mean, I'm just glad that we're looking now at having events in the park, which we did not have before, without trying to go so far as to sell sandwiches too. But just however it works out, but that's the kind of thing that I think that you're pushing against as far as the,
We aren't trying to sell sandwiches.
I know.
Someone else is trying to sell.
right, I agree.
one of the businesses that we're trying to support, like,
What I'm hearing is, this is the way we've always done it.
yeah.
No,
That is exactly what I'm hearing. This is the
No.
way we've always done it. And it seems like that needs to be reconsidered.
yeah, I don't think that it's the way we've always done it. I think that there is I think that there's a philosophy which has stayed. So that is the way we've always done it, but they're trying to not have the park become that kind of an environment. So, and again, we're talking about, to try to do as a workaround, I guess. That people can go ahead and pay for the sandwiches or whatever in advance, pick them up, walk over to the park. So it's still possible to do that commerce. But the idea of, people showing up with coolers or whatever and selling sandwiches, in the middle of a play or something, I mean, that's not what we're trying to accomplish.
And I understand that.
Right.
They don't want tables of merchandise, they don't want tables, people cooking and barbecuing and whatever, I get that. But I don't understand why somebody can't deliver you a sandwich and you hand them $20 or you Venmo them money. I mean, what, I don't understand why that seems ridiculous.
Well, and again, bring it up.
It sounds like an ordinance change.
Yes, it will require an ordinance change, and it is something that's going to be coming up. It would fall under the special events ordinance,
Okay,
and so it's coming up.
Yeah, a special event permit or something, and then could you run something that's indigenous to that group, if they want to do sandwiches or bring them in or do whatever they want for, feeding the group that they have, and can they have special requirement if they use special permit.
Well, we do have a special permit for anything that goes on in the park.
Mhm.
And that could be something that could be added to it. But I think because so many of these businesses are outside of what the permittee is trying to do. And as a matter of fact, and what we're doing since COVID is that to make it easier for everybody to have these events is the city has become the applicant. So instead of everybody having to come up with the insurance and all that, so,
Well, that's great.
but trying to make it happen. But I don't know when it's gonna come up because there's so many things in front of the planning board right now. But these are some of the things that will be discussed.
Good, that's great.
Okay, back to the adaptations that the theater has been making. That sounds good to me. That they're trying things and experimenting. Even though it's not the specific things known at the time of their application.
I'd like to see them doing this and these pivots. We saw them last summer when they did some theater, Shakespeare in the Park. And then at Christmas when they had the Scrooge radio hour or whatever, it was something like that. It was a radio show, reading Christmas Carol. I think they're doing a really nice job trying to stay in front of people as much as possible. All people in their facility.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things that we're gonna try to sort through is how do you make it easy for people to make donations while there's an ongoing event? You know, like with music, it's a little bit easier. With play, it might not, but I think they're really counting on that people will make a donation equivalent to what the ticket would be or something, or at least close. But going up to the stage and putting it in a hat doesn't quite work for Coaster. It does work for the band.
Yeah. it looks nice.
Yes. Okay,
All right. Tolahana Hall, the improvements. Can you enlighten us of how that?
Yeah, they're close to getting everything that they need to do under contract.
oh, good.
But, you know, they do events that might involve dance or something like that, so they want the floor that would accommodate that. So Andrew is working with our public works team who does the contracting for the city. So that's moving forward now.
Has any of it been done?
No,
You know, none of it, not even the lighting's been done yet.
I don't know if they changed out the lighting yet, but they're getting ready to hire contractors.
They have suggested that some of the contractors had given initial bids and now they're coming down with dollar differences.
Yeah,
that are
I saw.
hugely-
And it's tough to hire a contractor right now.
Mhm.
As all of us who are using it know.
I would not be surprised to see them come back to request additional funding just to complete that project.
Mhm.
That would be in a future ask.
I'm glad that it's happening.
Our last event, Get Lit at the Beach, is not occurring,
Cancel.
and there will be some coming back.
It's canceled.
I expect them to be looking at the future for whatever possibilities. There's just too much good energy there and too much community input, too much funding that comes in and support that comes from outside of what we do. It's such a strong community event that again brings return visitors, not just for that event, but at different times of the year.
I did ask Tracy if it was something that could be adapted to occur at the band shop. You know, if it's going to be readings or discussions or that kind of thing. So that's, again, something that could happen there. But that's, you know, up to her to figure out how to do it.
And then it takes it out of being a shoulder event, I bet, because of weather.
The weather.
Yeah, possibly.
Wouldn't be a shoulder season, unfortunately.
Yeah. There's another aspect too, is that when we were talking about Tolovana Art, to me, if we move forward with the Cannon Beach Elementary project, it's gonna have different types of spaces. To me, that's just somebody that we could work with and does not confine them to the space that they, you know, are currently responsible for. So if they wanted to do something larger than what they can accommodate, we can make something work with them. Yeah.
Usually the problem with the school, using a school, ask me how I know, is that you can't serve alcohol.
Mhm.
That's, because in the olden days, when they were started, we wanted to use the school, and they said, well, you can't use any alcohol. It's like, well,
But that's what the school district owned it.
Right.
Yeah, no, I know, but I mean, so that, the school district, but it's still a school. I always thought it had something to do with it being a school.
No,
No,
it has to do with who owns it, the school district.
it's not a school anymore.
It's not school.
No, no, I'm not talking about that one, I'm talking about your school, this academy down here,
Oh.
across from the Toll Down Arts Colony.
That way.
Isn't that what you were talking about?
No, I'm talking about if something happens
Never
in
mind.
elementary.
Never mind, I was thinking the
Yeah.
academy.
That one would be a gray area
Yeah.
because they do have a relationship with the district, but it's city owned. But I know that I had plenty of beers at their event.
Okay, never mind then. I
They-
thought it was a school district issue because we were told, yeah, well, you can't serve alcohol in here. It's like, why would we do a wine event with no alcohol?
Yeah,
Hello.
Mhm.
So, because, I mean, they're right across the parking lot from each other. You could definitely see that that could be used.
Mhm.
The academy and Tolovana Colony could be used as something for an
Yeah.
event.
It is, but the school is hard to convert away from a school for a short period of time and then back to a school.
Understood. I thought we
Yeah.
were talking about the academy building, not the old.
No,
Never mind.
no, I'm sorry.
Never mind.
Not the academy building, the Tolovana Arts across the hall,
Yes.
across the parking lot.
Yeah.
We have one more subject for discussion having to do with the next round of application deadlines,
Yeah.
deadline dates. Which is being pushed out from the traditional 1st of May.
Well, or can be.
Or
Yeah.
can,
It's up to you.
that's up to us. Aha. Aha.
I certainly don't have, unless we're running up against something that I'm unaware of, moving it to June. And the only bad part is us meeting in the middle of summer, which is hard, I get it, but it just seems so early to be asking. It seems like another month of vaccinations might help get us to a little bit more being able to plan. I don't know what you guys think.
It seems early.
Yeah, it seems really early to be able to say anything. I mean, I can imagine, because that would mean, so I look at it as looking at Sabre. It's like, does Gary know by May 10th that he's gonna be able to do something in March of 2022? Probably another month would be helpful.
I think the rate of information change is huge right now.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm in favor of, moving it about a month.
So going with the June 7th.
Going with the June
9th,
7th.
June 14th. and June
Does that mess us up in any way with on the other end of giving money or any of that kind of stuff?
I checked with Lori and she said it was fine because your first disbursement
Yeah,
is still not going to happen until November.
that's right. Okay.
So we could even push it back further if you want. I mean, it really is, we have to have all of this, if you're gonna have this money given in November, it needs to be to council in October.
Right.
And you work session at first, which would be September.
So you back it up from there.
Yeah, we can go even further out depending on how you guys want to do it. I just need to let people know because people are asking me now, like, when's that applications? We're like, we're working on it, but of course, you do have some flexibility in your schedule.
Although everyone's schedule is gonna be really tight in July and August,
Oh.
we're gonna be
Right.
It's gonna be grim, but
trying to ride that flow of business that we're anticipating.
What if it was to go to a time just after Labor Day? Which maybe, and then we push it out to first payment to December.
Okay, that's interesting.
and that seems
Okay.
kind of late for some other people.
Well, like, the gallery group is gonna have an application for an Earth and Ocean,
Right, which would be in October.
which would be in
Yeah.
September.
Okay,
I'm sorry, September. Why do I keep putting that thing in October?
You keep trying.
Yeah, I know.
So, that would be problematic for that one organization.
Right.
does it make sense, and I know you all are extremely busy, but to just kind of deal with all the folks that we normally deal with on kind of a what if? Where they said, if I was gonna do this, I would need to know this, I would need to have my money by such and such. And possibly parse them up a little bit as opposed to saying everything has to go at once. Is that,
So we have 2 cycles of this, is that what you're saying?
Ooh, or 5 cycles of this potentially.
yeah, potentially, but some of them would be very small, like if somebody's gonna do something in the fall, you've got that group. But if somebody's gonna do something later would probably be better for better information or something. It's just a suggestion, because if it's If it all has to happen at once, it really
It
does.
makes it hard
But
for
then-
lots of people.
That creates a tremendous drag of time of the number of people involved in each decision-making to retain this whole thing on a committee basis.
Yeah, no, I understand that. So that's, my opening was, I know y'all are very busy with it. I'm just trying to find an answer, and then we can see if it can be made to work.
I'm okay that we got this timeline. I would hate to push it back too far because of the fall events.
So when you say this timeline, you mean?
The option two, excuse me, the option
Option
two,
two.
yeah, sorry. And then the applicant interviews, so they have to get their stuff in by the 7th. We've got 2 weeks to read it. And then we have the big interviews in June. I think that month is critical.
Do we know when the farmer's market is gonna start?
Is there gonna be one this year?
Yes, and what they're looking at is, I don't remember the exact date, but it's either the July 7th or July 12th. But what I've told them is that, that's fine, but if you can possibly see that it could open earlier, there's nothing tying you to that date, so just stay flexible. And on next Tuesday night, they're gonna say that the business license is $10 for the market for this year.
Because I'm just looking at June 15th is a Tuesday,
Yeah,
that if the farmer's market's happening, I'm there
Yeah.
as a vendor. But if not, if it's before the expected start time of it, then I'm fine. I mean, it's gotta happen in June anyway, so.
Yeah.
Yes,
that would require a lot of things to happen for them to be able to start in June. But if they did, I said, don't worry about moving it earlier.
And usually they opened on the, I would have expected if it had been like previous times in the before times, it would have been a June 22nd opening. Rather than mid-June, from what I've seen, it's on the end of June.
The third Tuesday.
I don't want to
Yeah,
back our timeline up into a conflict
Yes,
with meeting potentials.
No, so I would be out for one meeting. So it's just, it is what it is.
Can we move?
I think I can give you my,
Feedback.
can I give you my numbers if I'm not here?
Sure.
Of course.
There's a mechanism for that.
Sure.
Yes, we had a
Can we
conflict
get
with
numbers
that.
if he,
once
if
before.
this is one of them, and he reads what people said?
Yeah, there's no problem with that.
He can watch it on the YouTube,
Yeah.
okay.
But also, we could change it a day, I think.
That's only if we have a market. If we don't have a market, this is.
It's all.
But if you have a market, maybe we go to that Wednesday instead of Tuesday.
Yes.
Monday and Wednesday.
We could do Monday, Wednesday, if there's a market. I agree with you, Bruce. I can't imagine that they're gonna have a market ready to go by June 15th.
No, I would be
I
surprised.
think it's tight, but.
That
I'm
seems,
just- I'm just
you
bringing
never
it up.
know.
But we
So
do,
I would say let's adopt option 2.
Yes.
and don't we let the applicants know, this is my first one with TAC, for community grants, we always let them know early on, like, hey, here's where your interview dates are, so
Yes.
plan.
Absolutely, because they need to come and talk to us about it.
Yeah, and so they need to know what they are, and I don't remember if I saw that in the application or not.
Interviews.
Well, in theory, we could say interviews are the week of.
Yes, we'll do that.
Okay, so I'm putting them on the 14th and the 15th.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll go with option 2. One thing I put on here, because I used last year's form, is do we really need to do midterm?
That's what we just did today.
But isn't that where you invite applicants here to talk about it too? Or is that just?
You know, I suppose we should have invited applicants here, although it
Most of
doesn't
them
really matter
didn't.
because there's hardly anything going on.
Yeah, so, okay, so I don't have to worry about that one, because that's where I was like, if we have to invite applicants to participate, I mean, this is a very different year. Okay, so that one I don't have to worry about.
Sorry, I just spoke for you, Jim. I apologize.
No, that's okay.
See what you did there, Jim?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Because when I looked at stuff, it was like, you guys got the evaluations, and then it looked like you had a separate meeting where they were invited.
Usually, now
Talk, yeah.
that I think about it.
Yeah, but this is a very different situation. So the other thing is I did the application. I want to talk to you guys. How do you feel? In the past, we've always done paper only. But the one thing we've learned with COVID is everybody does everything electronic, sorry. And so I added in there that we would accept electronic applications. If they can email it in, but it's their responsibility to ensure it's been received.
Okay.
So, because that's nowadays, and we also have a file share system through the city on our website. So if it's a large document, they can upload it to our website. It sends me a notice. We have a lot of ways to do this now that we didn't have before. And looking at the packets, nobody's packet is that huge for their initial stuff. So if you guys are good with that, I put that in yellow on the application, because that was really the only change I made. Everything else in the application is the same, just updated dates.
On the important meeting where we get together and go over the numbers, you have last week of June.
Well, I was kind of looking at schedules and trying to figure out, and I was getting nervous because we were in June, and so what do you guys think? I mean, if we want to do, what dates do you guys?
I was gonna say, maybe do that thing where you send out the email and say, this week, tell us what days work best, or mornings or afternoon, because this is frankly the most important meeting.
Okay,
I mean, the interviews are equally as important, but the meeting where we go over the numbers is super important.
and I was trying to keep it before getting into July, because I know July it gets even busier. And so I'll send out an email and see what's available. I'll email you guys this up today.
Because we can sit here and do it with us, but we're missing 2 people,
Yeah,
and that's an important meeting.
okay.
Did Mike ever join us?
No,
Oh, that's right.
no, which I was just gonna ask that. In attendance.
So if you guys are good with this, then I'll go ahead and update the application based on these dates and get it out to people. That way you can start.
Okay.
Application's in.
Anything for the good of the order? Then let's call this meeting to a close. We are adjourned.
Thanks, folks.
And we made it before